Hello and welcome back to another Rush Duel Links video. Today we'll be going over the leaks that have been data mined, and that is a new deck build box, Forbidden Fantastic Show. And as you can tell by this art, this is going to be a Matarian box. Now, Matarian is very divisive. Some people love Matarian, some people hate Matarian. Matarian has been kind of responsible for two of the closest to tier 0 formats we've had in Rush Duel Links. So for me specifically, I do kind of get a bit worried whenever Matarian gets some support, and the new cards they're getting do look very, very good. But first things first, we got a new animation trigger, a new Ace Monster animation trigger for Ensemble Fighter the Music Fiend has been added, which as it says here is alluding to Tiger from Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s as a character. So huge thanks to British Piper for doing all this data mining, and obviously this is Brad's website, so huge shout out to him as well. But if we get into this deck build box, we do have some quite interesting cards to go over. First things first, Yami Luna, the Dark Devotee. So this card is relatively modern. I want to say this card came out around a year ago. I'd have to look it up to double check, but this card is pretty good. 2500 attack, 2500 defense is pretty good. If we have a Yami Ruler the Dark Delayer face up on the field, you can special summon this card from your hand face up to your field. So being able to get this out with no tributes is really good. But in order to get the special summon, we do have to have Yami Ruler on the field. Now, Yami Ruler is fine, but we have no way to search Yami Ruler, and it is a limit 3 card. So if we want to play this with Yami Tarasu, we're only going to have 2 copies of Yami Ruler, which means seeing it is going to be less likely. So it's a little bit awkward there, but we can change the battle position of one face-up monster on our field. So obviously we would want to tribute out the Yami Ruler, activate its effect, change it to defense, to floodgate our opponent. Then we could special summon this and then change that Yami Ruler back to attack mode, and then we can attack with it. Choose one face-up Yami Ruler the Dark Delayer on your field while that monster is face up. It gains 500 attack, so that is a permanent 500 attack boost as long as that Yami Ruler remains face up. And it inflicts piercing damage, which is really good. That is a really strong effect. The only issue is you have to compare this to the decks we currently have access to, and a lot of them are very OTK, very, very fast decks, and just getting a 2500 guy and then being able to make your Yami Ruler a 3000 piercer isn't bad, but it's also not very fast. It's going to be quite a slow controlled deck. So I'm not super sure how this is going to work at the moment. We do have some other cards to go over as well. There are probably some that are screaming at you right now, such as Shady. But I want to focus on Yami Luna first, because this card is awkward. I'm not really sure what we would play this in. The other card we have that kind of supports this deck is going to be Sayanin, the Blazing Conqueror. This card's stats are okay, but if we have no other monsters on our field, we can add a level 8 Fire or Dark Attribute Warrior type monster from your graveyard to your hand. This turn, you cannot attack with monsters with 1900 or less defense. So you can play this in baseball, which is quite nice. There are a couple of warriors in there you could use for that, but primarily this card is going to be used with Yami Ruler. Now, that's pretty cool, right? We can summon this out, we could immediately take back a Yami Ruler or a Yami Luna, and then we have that in our hand. That's just a free plus. That's pretty good. The issue is that this is a fire monster, so it begs the question, what skill are we planning to use? Because we haven't had any skills leaked, so we presumably aren't getting any. That means we'll be using some of our old skills, and if we take a look at Celestial Guidance, this is the current Yami Ruler skill. This skill can be used if all of the monsters in your constructor deck are light, dark, earth, and or wind, warriors, or fairies. So this is a fire warrior, which means we can't actually use this in the Celestial Guidance deck, which then means the next best option is probably going to be Spectral Squall, because this just limits all of the cards in our deck that are 1400 more attack to be warriors and winged beasts. So we don't really have a good skill that works with Sayanin and with Yami Luna outside of, like we say, Spectral Squall. But that deck is notoriously quite bricky because we need to play a lot of high-level monsters. We need to play the 3 Ice Sark. We need to play plenty of high-level warrior monsters to be sent to the graveyard using the skill. So it's not immediately obvious how we're going to be playing these cards. And my initial impression is that I think the Yami Ruler deck isn't going to suddenly get really, really powerful with these additions. I think they'll be nice additions, and I think they will definitely strengthen the strategy. But it's not going to be as simple as these cards good, go into the current deck as it is, and it'll make the deck better. I think we're really going to have to cook with this and really come up with something really, really strong. But one card that really could make the difference is Shiny Shady. Shiny Shady is a new trap card. This card is very, very generic, and it is very, very powerful. So when your opponent normal or special summons a monster during their turn, we can send one card from our hand to the graveyard. then choose up to 2 face-up effect monsters on the field, change them to face-down defense position. Then if you chose a monster on your opponent's field with 2600 or more original attack, you gain 1500 life points. So this is really good. First things first, this card will only work on effect monsters, so you can't flip down normal monsters. So you can theoretically play around this by just summoning out normal monsters, which isn't going to be too common, but it will come up occasionally. Next up, we can change the battle positions of any 2 monsters on the field, including our own monsters. So we can change one of our low attack monsters to defense position to try and conserve our life points. The next thing to note with this card is that we do have to send a card from our hand to the graveyard, which means we're going to have to end our turn with a card in hand. And that does mean if your opponent does end their turn with a card in hand, you now need to play around Shady. So occasionally it might be better, even if you don't have a Shady, but you do have a face-down back row card, to just keep a card in hand to try and bluff that you have Shady, because that could be a really, really strong play. But Shiny Shady is a ridiculously powerful trap card. This card is really, really strong right now. Right now in OCG, this is one of the best trap cards in the game. And just to emphasize that point, I'm going to show you just a handful of tournament-winning OCG lists. So first things first, this is the strongest deck in the game right now in the OCG. This is a ritual deck called Black Magic Ritual. You can see we have Magician of Black Chaos down here. And what do we see in the traps? 3 Shiny Shady. Then we have another tournament winning list. This is Animagica, another really top tier deck. And once again, 3 Shiny Shady. Then we have another deck. This is Magnet Warriors with a Dark Matter engine. And once again, 3 Shiny Shady. These are all tournament winning decks, all very relevant meta decks right now in the OCG, and Shiny Shady is in all of them at 3 copies, which just goes to show how powerful this trap is. Now, not every deck is going to run Shiny Shady. It's not just going to be like an auto-include in absolutely everything, but this is undeniably one of the strongest trap cards in the game right now in the OCG, which is arguably a few years ahead of Duel Links. So this card is going to be very, very relevant for a very, very long time. It'll be interesting to see if this card is limited. At the moment, it doesn't look like it's going to be, but anything can happen, right? This could come out as a limit 3, this could come out as a limit 1, but right now we have to go under the assumption that this card is going to be unlimited, and if that's the case, this is really going to change the way the game works. This card is going to slow the meta down, theoretically, because having more trap cards is something that people have been asking for a while, because they think that Rush Duel Links is too fast. And we found ourselves in a meta where all the decks are capable of OTKing each other, so having additional trap cards would theoretically prevent that. It will stop some OTKs and it will slow the meta down a little bit. Now, Shiny Shady is, like we say, it's very, very powerful. It's very, very generic. Any deck can play this card, and I really think this is going to have a large impact on the meta. What this does mean is decks that just kind of go full throttle and try and OTK your opponent ASAP, those could get shut down a little bit by Shiny Shady. And that does mean slower decks that don't tend to OTK your opponent, but do have a better grind game, they do have a bit more of a control aspect, those decks might be a bit stronger. So I'm thinking things like Spellcasters. Even the Yami ruler deck can probably take advantage of this trap card. And there will be some decks, I think, that are punished harder by Shiny Shady, and I think there are other decks that will really benefit from just having Shiny Shady, being able to play that slower grind game. But next up, we'll talk about the Matarian cards, because these Matarian cards are really, really strong. We'll probably actually start with Imaginary Leading Actor, because this card does less. So this card's pretty cool. Level 8, 2500 attack monster. Send the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard. So first off, milling 3 is really, really good. As we go further into kind of Rush's lifespan, we'll get more and more of these mill X cards, and milling 3 is a really good number to hit to mill. This turn, this card's name becomes Imaginary Actor. Then you could add 1 light attribute normal monster with 500 defense and or 1 fusion from your graveyard to your hand. So the best comparison I can make to this card is compare it to Extraplorer, which is a 2 tribute monster. You summon it out, and then you get to take back fusion and a normal monster from your graveyard back to your hand. This basically does the same thing. So this will let you set up fusion plays really, really well. So the idea here is that we want to turbo our graveyard. So again, this card does mill 3 on its own. Fill our graveyard with copies of fusion and light normal monsters with 500 defense, add those back to hand, and then fuse them off to get out our boss monsters. And our new fusion boss monster is really, really powerful as well. This is Fullmetarion Assurestar. So this is made using an Imaginary Actor and a level 9 cyborg type monster. So that means we can make this using any of our Matarian fusions. An Imaginary Actor is quite easy to get a hold of. We'll be playing 3 of the normal monster, which again we can get back using our Imaginary Leading Actor or Starry Star. Imaginary Leading Actor itself can become Imaginary Actor, and we'll have Imaginary Reactor that can also become Imaginary Actor. So having Actor shouldn't be that big of a deal. But we can place 1 card from our hand on the bottom of the deck. So that's a bit of a steep cost for him to give up a card, but it's a really strong effect, so it does make sense. Special summon a level 9 cyborg type monster from your graveyard to your field in face up defense position. Now it has to be defense position, but that is the only negative here. So what we could do, for example, is summon out a Matarian Ashura Star, use its effect to pop a card in our opponent's field, use it off into Fullmetarian Ashura Star, use Fullmetarian Ashura Star's effect to bring back the original Ashura Star, then use its effect again to pop another card, which is really, really powerful. But its other effect is that this card gains attack equal to the attack of one face-up non-cyborg type monster on your opponent's field until the end of this turn. So this is really, really good. Effectively, we could yoink our opponent's attack into that same monster and just guarantee 3,200 damage, which is really good. If your opponent has one high attack monster and one low attack monster, obviously the amount of damage we deal could go up by quite a lot. But this card is really, really good. The only issue I see with these cards is I feel like whereas with regular Ashura Star and type Change Beam, you're quite good at absorbing so much attack you can just OTK your opponent, I don't feel like Fullmetarian Ashura Star has that same kind of staying power. The other issue is that getting a Fullmetarian Ashura Star out is quite a heavy investment. If we think about it, we have to normal summon Fusion to get out a regular Ashura Star. Then we have to summon Imaginary Actor and activate another Fusion, so that's 5 cards, and now we have our Fullmetarian Ashura Star. We then need a 6th card to activate its effect to bring back the original Ashura Star, so that's already a 6-card combo to get this going. What alleviates this is Imaginary Reactor's effect. If we can use Reactor, we can get a free +2, which means now we could do that whole combo and have a card left over. But even with that whole combo, we've popped 2 of our opponent's cards, we've summoned a 3,200 attack monster, and then we have a 2,800 attack monster that's stuck in defense position. So that on its own still doesn't kill your opponent. So I don't see this deck as being a particularly powerful OTK deck, like how the original Matarian deck was. I kind of see this more as a very intricate control strategy, where again, we can use these good trap cards to protect our monsters, and the Matarian fusion monsters are just really good at gaining tons of advantage. Victor Star is really good at changing your opponent's monsters to attack and getting damage in. Ashura Star, again, really good at popping back rows out the way or popping defense position monsters out the way so that we can just get to our opponent's life points. So I could see this being a bit more of a slower deck and less of like the OTK strategy. But these cards are still really, really strong. And they're also bolstered by the new spell card we're getting, Imaginary Arc Talents. To excavate the top 4 cards of your deck, you can send 1 excavated light attribute normal monster with 500 defense or 1 excavated fusion to the graveyard, place the other cards at the bottom of your deck in any order. Then if you send a card to the graveyard, you can draw 1 card. So this is pretty good. This is much, much better in Duel Links because we only have 30 card decks, which means this is more likely to go off, right? We're more likely to excavate something that we can send to the graveyard and get that draw. And again, we want to be setting up the graveyard because we want to get fusion in the graveyard so we can bring back Start Restart, or we can bring it back with Leading Actor. We want to get, again, all of our normal monsters in the graveyard so that we can, again, toolbox that graveyard as much as we can. So this card didn't see a ton of play in the OCG, but I do think this card will see a bit more play in Duel Links, again, because of the difference in deck size. This deck, to me, feels a little bit like Heroes, in that you'll use your new spell cards to kind of turbo through your deck really, really quickly, try and set up the graveyard, toolbox the graveyard to try and control the game and try and win that way. And I think these could be really, really strong. So now we're going to take a look at a tournament-winning OCG Matarian deck, and as you can see, we already have most of these cards in Duel Links. We're missing Baller, which is a really good card, but it's not super necessary. Other than that, we have the majority of cards here, up to and including the Shiny Shady. The 2 big cards we're missing for this deck to, in my opinion, be at full strength is going to be this Fusion spell card and this Trap card. I just want to cover those quickly because they are really, really important. And not having these cards is what really separates Duel Links from the OCG in terms of the Matarian deck list. So first off, Matarian Fusion. Fusion summon a cyborg type monster by sending monsters from your hand or field to the graveyard as material. Then you can add a fusion or 1 monster sent to the graveyard by this effect from your graveyard to your hand. So this card is really, really strong because this allows us to get a plus off of our fusion, which is really, really important. Being able to get those extra pluses is what really allows us to extend our plays and really go for these big combo turns. And we currently don't have access to this, so again, it's going to be a little bit weaker. The other card is Imaginary Arc Turnover, which is when your opponent normal or special summons a monster, fusion summon a cyborg type monster by shuffling monsters from your field and or graveyard into the owner's deck. So this is a trap card that allows us to Miracle Fusion and refills our deck, which is really good. And then you can destroy a face-up level 8 or lower monster. So this is a fantastic trap, and it's no wonder we don't have this yet, because we don't really have a lot of very good traps. Obviously, we're getting Shiny Shady. But if we had this trap and this spell card, then in my opinion, Matarian would be a tier 0 deck. But we don't actually have these cards just yet. And then last but not least, we do have the Tamina bot, and I don't think this card is very good. It's made using 2 Tama bot. It's a level 2 fusion with 2000 attack, 2000 defense. Your opponent draws 1 card and shows it. If that is a monster, this card gains attack equal to that monster's attack to the end of the turn. It's kind of a joke card. I wouldn't expect this card to really see any play. It'd be fun if someone does make it work, but I'm not really expecting it to. But these are the cards. This is everything that we'll be getting in this new deck build box, and I think this is going to have a big impact. I do think Shiny Shady is going to have a massive, massive meta impact. I do think that Matarian has a real good chance to be a top 3 deck in the game, so I would recommend picking this up if you're interested in these, because I think these are going to be good. I'm less convinced by the Warrior stuff. I really hope that we can make this work. We can kind of cook and find a list that really works, but I'm not convinced by just these cards. And I think realistically, the thing that's letting this deck down is the fact that we don't have a new skill that really works with these cards. But thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you next time.